Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's graduate webinar. My name is Wendy Boland. I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies for American University, and I'm really happy that you've all decided to join us tonight. We're hoping that through this webinar that we can answer a lot of your general questions regarding the fall 2020 plan for AU. And I know many of those questions were submitted to us previously, so we're going to start there. And then we're also going to leave the question and answer section open so that if you have additional questions throughout the webinar, you can feel free to post those and we will answer as many of those as we can. Tonight, I am joined by my colleagues from the Office of General Counsel, from Housing, AU Central, the Office of Financial Aid, of course, the Office of Graduate Studies, the Library, the International Student and Scholar Services, the Associate Deans and various college staff from all of your units and colleges. And so there's a lot of people here on this call who, really want to be able to help you through this change in our modality and plan and try to do everything we can to support you. You are extremely important to us. And we know that the fall change, the announcement last week, came to a surprise to some. Also wasn't a surprise to some, given the 14-day mandatory quarantine in Washington, D.C. And I hope you understand that all of the decisions we're making is really to make sure that we're putting health and safety first for our entire AU community. With that, we are spending a lot of time working on building out our courses and making sure that we're delivering great content to all of you so you can continue to work towards completing your degrees and, of course, getting to that next phase, which is whatever step in your career you're looking for next. And so that is really our focus, and we are here to support you in every way that we can. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about what campus will be or won't be. And so I know that some of you, I know you understand that for the majority of our coursework, we will be in an online modality. However, there are two types of online modalities. I want to make sure everyone understands that. The first being a more asynchronous content, or content that's delivered online and delivered where you can go on and access the content throughout the course when you'd like. The other type of online modality is what we're calling online live, or a more synchronous modality. And this is where your courses will meet at the set time based on your course schedule, and you will be able to interact with your peers and your professors in a type of Zoom meeting or things like that. In order to have your courses. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see a range of courses, from the completely online asynchronous content to things in the middle, to a lot of courses that really focus on that synchronous live interaction. We also are well aware about Zoom fatigue. We know that that is a real thing. And so our faculty will really be working with their classes and their students, looking at their content to design what makes the most sense for that course, and in working with all of you. And hopefully your faculty has started to reach out to you on that. In terms of campus, one thing that we have heard is extremely important to our graduate students is to have access to campus if you are here. And so we are working right now to provide a list of buildings, laboratories, workspaces, art studios, and different things that will be open to our graduate students who are living in the DMV or who would like to access campus. We know that all of you won't be able to do that because you're all over the country and all around the world. But for those of you who are in the DMV and who have moved to the DMV, we know that for many of you, the proximity to campus, the ability to come onto campus, of course, based on the health and safety guidelines with face coverings and the proper social distancing in place, we will be setting, like I said, many places for studying and for access to lab softwares and things like that for those of you who are here. And so I did want to make sure that you were aware that the graduate student cohort, or the graduate students in general, are really our focus in making sure that graduate students have access to campus, especially for those students who are in majors where they really need either that studio time or access to film equipment or access to labs or working on research projects or grants. And so to make sure that you are still able to do those things and to do those things safely. In addition, for those of you who are virtual and need to be virtual, we will be making sure you too have access to a lot of these different things, yes, in a virtual modality, but making sure we're really thinking about what resources we need to buy as a university to ensure that you can continue to be successful and move your studies forward from wherever you are. So we have gotten some questions around, you know, what will AU do and what resources will they have if I'm living in maybe a group house where I feel like I don't have a conducive study environment, or my internet, it doesn't have a great connection. If you are in the DMV, then coming onto campus and finding a safe space to work and access the internet will be possible. At least that is the plan right now, and know that everything I say, of course, is changing rapidly, but that is our absolute intent right now. And so you will be able to do those things. We also do have a variety of groups working to help students who do not have the necessary technology that they the technology that they need to be successful, and working with those students to help them to get that technology in addition to those various softwares. So what we'd love for you to do is to work through your various channels, through your units, through your associate deans, through your advisors, to help us to understand what your needs are, what technology needs or software needs you might have, and making sure that we're working with you to try to get those to you as best as possible. Speaking about living in the D or not living in the DMV, we have heard from a lot of students that part of their frustration, and we understand this, is around leases and housing. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with our Director of Housing, Chris Silva. And Chris is going to talk to us a bit about housing, concerns about housing and various housing resources. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Thank you very much, Wendy, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I understand that several of you are still considering if you'll be coming to DC to live here, even though classes are remote, and some of you are considering breaking leases or subletting your spaces. And part of this, of course, is your contract, and it's your landlord, and how flexible they are and how you work with them. And so we have compiled a good amount of resources on our housing website that I want to show you and ask you to review these resources, because they can be tremendously helpful for you. So I'm just going to share my screen to walk you through these resources. So can everyone see this website? Great. And so the web page is american.edu/housing. And in this page, you're going to look for this section called Off-Campus Students and our Off-Campus Student Services page. And so here on this page, we have, I would say, 3 very good and critical resources that I would suggest you review. So the first piece here is a document from the Office of the Tenant Advocate from the District of Columbia government that advises you on different elements that you should review in your contract if you're trying to terminate your lease. And so there are different elements, part of your contract with your landlord, that could come into play to support the termination of the lease. Then we also have some advice here about contacting, discussing with your landlord. But I would say the second most important aspect here is that we have a webinar that we hosted yesterday with the Office of the Tenant Advocate and with one of our colleagues from the Office of General Counsel. And we also have another colleague here today on the call. But I would suggest that you review this video. Many of the questions that you may be having are asked and were answered on this webinar yesterday. So the recording is right here on this off-campus leasing webinar. And then the third resource is if, let's say, you want to still stay in the DMV, but you're looking for a roommate, or you want to sublet your unit, you can use our off-campus posting site, which I just clicked on. And this is a resource that's available for you. As an AU student, you have to log in with your AUID credentials, and you're able to post on this site for no cost to sublet your unit if that is something that you're looking to do. So those are the 3, I would say, most important resources that we have and have been helping students answer most of their questions about either staying in the DMV or looking to sublet or terminate their contract if they want to leave the DMV for the year or for the semester. If you're considering as well what you're going to be doing for spring semester, or if you're going to be what you're going to be doing for next summer, you're also welcome to use that same off-campus posting site to look for properties for next semester, for the next school year. We keep that site frequently updated with different properties and different resources. If you, and just as another element, we did list down here, again, the Office of the Tenant Advocate of the District of Columbia, but also if you are living perhaps in Maryland or in Virginia, we do have information from those different offices that support and advocate for tenants. So I would say that those are the most common and the most important resources. I know that we have students may have questions, very specific legal questions, or may have other concerns related to contract that they may have already started to break. And I know that we have a colleague from General Counsel today that may help advise and inform students.
Thank you, Chris. That's very helpful. And as Chris mentioned, we will have someone from General Counsel here to help to elaborate on this as we move forward in the discussion. But for now, because he hasn't joined us quite yet, we're going to move on to the next question. And so I'd love to turn the next question over to Selena Healy, who's from the Office of Financial Aid, and that's to ask Selena to walk us through how the tuition discounting will work and how that may impact your financial aid.
Hello, everyone. I'm Selena Healy. I'm with the Financial Aid Office. And just to explain how that works is the tuition discounting. You're going to see that reflected on your bill, basically lower tuition and fees. And it does impact financial aid potentially in two ways. First, if you were getting a scholarship for full tuition or a scholarship that covered your full tuition, that has been reduced to equal what your new tuition charge is. All of our scholarships are for tuition only. So if a tuition over award existed because the charges were reduced, then that tuition scholarship will still only cover your actual tuition charges. It won't, you don't get to receive the balance if it was for tuition only. And that is true basically for all of our students. Any tuition scholarships were evaluated to see if there was a tuition over award once the tuition and fees were reduced. If you were being charged more in tuition than what your scholarship was, then there was no change to your scholarship. And that will continue throughout, usually, and this is normal for every year, our financial aid office is checking enrollment all the way up through the end of add drop for the semester. So even from now until the end of add drop, we're going to be evaluating based on your current enrollment. So if at any time we see that you're enrolled in fewer credits than what we were anticipating, we're going to be adjusting that. So there are some students, for example, they might be getting a scholarship for 9 credits, and if they're only currently in 3 credits, I didn't necessarily cancel that yet, because my expectation is that you might still be waiting to add 1 or 2 classes. But at some point, by the time add drop ends, we will be cleaning those up so that scholarships do not exceed actual tuition charges. So that's one way that financial aid is impacted. Another way that financial aid is impacted is just the total cost of attendance then is we will adjust your cost of attendance to reflect the lower tuition and fees charge. And so if you had borrowed extra loans for the full cost of attendance, you'll see a slight reduction in those loans because basically we're not going to give you extra loans for the tuition and fees you're no longer paying. But it doesn't impact then, the amount that you are going to be using for the tuition and fees you're still paying is not changed. The amount that you're expecting to get back for living expenses also does not change. So it's only the only portion that, impact you see on your financial aid is whatever was originally intended to cover those expenses that no longer exist, that part goes away. So, but beyond that, you won't see any impact on the financial aid. I did see a question in the chat box about when will financial aid pay? Every semester, and there's federal regulations on how early we can pay aid. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of flexibility to pay it extra early. But every semester, you will see financial aid pay by the start of the semester. So first day of class, we actually start paying it a few days before the start of class. but between the time of our paying it and student accounts processing refunds and your banks processing direct deposits, in general, if all of your paperwork has been done and you're enrolled in your classes and everything in the, you know, by the time the semester starts, you should see that financial aid paid to your student account by the start of classes, and those refunds are available then. If you haven't already signed up for direct deposit, please go ahead and do that, because that is the fastest way to get those refunds to you once that money pays. And I'm just going to take a quick look, so I see some more questions coming in. I'm sorry. Oh, if you're going to defer for a semester and you want to cancel your loans, it's just you can reach out to our office. You can email financial aid, all one word, @american.edu. It sounds like a generic email, but that's actually programmed to go straight to your financial aid counselor. So if you know you're going to be taking fewer classes this semester, or you're going to defer, just email our office and we can make that adjustment for you. We can make sure those loans are canceled. And then even if you forget to email our office at some point when you drop those classes, part of our enrollment credit audit, we'll be doing that same thing anyway. So, and we'll see, because when you officially change your enrollment anytime with your academic advisor or with your academic unit, we'll be able to see that too and make the proper changes. So even if you don't, you know, think to email our office when you're making that change, we'll see it at some point anyway in our reports, and we'll make those adjustments. And then if you do have any questions, you know, for one thing, just keep in mind for any loans that have already paid, which it wouldn't have been for the fall because we haven't actually paid any money for the fall yet. But once money actually starts dispersing from the lenders and paying to students, if at that point your enrollment changes, just be aware that even if we do the update your loans within 24 hours, the lenders don't always update their records as quickly. I always tell students allow 6 to 8 weeks for their own repayment side to actually reflect any changes that were made. Because even when it's all done electronically, I'm amazed sometimes at how long it takes the lenders to update the actual repayment side. But that is something that we will be checking. We'll be checking enrollment and making those updates automatically as we see them. And I'm just checking real quick to see if there's any other questions, but that's mainly, I mean, that's probably the most important things to know about the financial aid and how it's going to be impacted just by, but you can still get, I know one of the questions that we get from students too is, can we still get financial aid for living expenses if it's all online? And the answer is yes, it's still part of your cost of attendance. So if you do need assistance with, in the form of student loans for additional living expenses, we do still have that available to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Selena. I really appreciate it. If we could turn to a little bit more information on billing. So I'd love to turn to my colleague, Jean Logan from AU Central. Jean, if you could talk a little bit more about billing. We do have many questions about how the tuition discounting will be shown on the bill. And then we also have questions about if I've already paid for something, whether that's a UPass and that ends up being removed, or I've already paid for tuition, will I get a reimbursement? And so there's definitely several questions about that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Wendy. Hello, I'm Jean Logan from AU Central. So let me start by saying that if you are already registered for classes, then the 10% tuition discount has already been applied to your student account. Okay, so it's important to note we've received some inquiries from students who are looking for a subtraction on their bill. The way that our billing system works, if you were already registered for classes, then the higher rate of tuition was removed from the bill, and then the lower rate was put on. So you're only going to see that one line item for your tuition on there at the lower rate, 10% off. As you register for additional classes now, you're automatically going to be charged at that lower rate. Right? So that happens automatically now. All of those adjustments have already been made. In addition, the sports center fee has been removed from your account for the fall semester, and the activity fee, the new discounted rate, has been applied. So again, all of those adjustments have been made to the account. If, as a result of all of that, if you have already paid for your tuition before these things happened, then the Office of Student Accounts is issuing refunds starting tomorrow for that. So that's only if you have already paid, not if you're anticipating student loans or other financial aid, but if you have already paid for your classes and those fees, and now those reductions have been made, those refunds will start going out tomorrow. Okay? Lots of questions about the UPass. So you'll notice if you're a full-time grad student, which is 9 credits or more, you're automatically charged for the UPass fee, $136 per semester. That allows unlimited rides on the local metro and bus system. If you are outside of the the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, then that charge will be removed from your account. It has not yet, and the UPass office is still working on that waiver process. Okay, so if you are looking to pay and you're figuring out how much you need to pay, you'll have to subtract that $136 amount yourself before it is officially removed once that waiver process is finalized. Related to that, we're also getting questions from students who are going to be in the DC area and want to know how and when they can pick up their UPass. And again, more information about that I anticipate will be released very shortly about what that process will look like for the fall. Okay, so if you have overpaid and you're expecting a refund, those refunds will go out starting tomorrow. We encourage all of our students, especially grad students, to sign up for ACH direct deposit so that any refunds can be sent to the bank account of your choice. You do that by going to Eagle Service on your student portal and entering your banking account information. If there's not a bank account information online for you, then we will mail that refund check to whatever permanent address that you have on file. Okay, so it's important you either sign up for a direct deposit, or if not, it's going to default to a paper check being mailed to your permanent address. And then as Selena just said, this is a separate process from the fall refund process where students can get their student loans refunded to them for their living expenses. And that process is just like it is every semester. Loans disperse at the start of the semester, a week before classes start, they will start. Once there's a credit on your account, we will start processing those refunds, send them direct deposit if it's on file, or a paper check if not. Two other important things that I'll mention, if the billing deadline for the fall has been extended to August 12th. Okay, so it typically is August 1st, but it's been extended to August 12th so that students can make, whatever arrangements they need to make based on these lower costs. If you have signed up for a monthly payment plan, your payments will also be automatically adjusted with the new tuition rate and the removal of fees. And finally, the other item that's on your account automatically if you sign up as a full-time student is health insurance, right? So that is automatically assessed to your account once you register for at least 9 credits. So you are able to waive that charge if you are covered under a comparable plan. And for more information about the waiver process, you would go to help.american.edu, search for health insurance waiver, and then follow the steps there to submit proof of your coverage so that that fee can be removed from your account. Okay, or you can, if you don't do that, the deadline to waive that health insurance is September 18th. So, you have to waive it by then if you don't want it. If you do want to participate in the program, then you just do nothing. You're automatically assessed that fee and enrolled in the program.
Great, thanks, Jean, I appreciate it. And we will be talking a bit more about health insurance fees. I know there's several questions around that. And so we will be talking about that as we move forward. So I am going to turn to my colleague, Ben Walker from the Office of General Counsel to talk a little bit more about the leases and some advice from the university regarding leases that you may be in if you're looking to get out of those. So Ben, if you're here to bring your camera up and join me, that'd be great. Okay, let me see. We may be having a technical problem there. So let me skip that and we'll come back. And let me please ask the university librarian, Nancy Davenport, to join us. So Nancy can talk to you about what resources will be available via the university library. Thanks, Nancy.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm very happy to meet these students. I looked at all the questions that you all had posed when you registered for this. So I'm going to start by addressing those. And if there are more, I'm sure that Wendy will hand them on to me. We actually are going to be running 2 libraries this year, over this coming semester. One will be the library for those people who are in the DMV, and the second library will be the virtual one for how we're going to provide services to all of you who are going to be studying remotely. We have spent the whole summer getting the library ready for you to come and be in the library and to figure out how we're going to get all these services to you. Faculty members will tell us the textbook assignments that they have for you. They usually tell us what readings they want you to do over the course of the semester. They're digitizing those readings, those pieces of a textbook that are specifically assigned, and they will be attached to the LMS, either Canvas or Blackboard, whichever one your faculty member is choosing to use. If you are coming to campus, let me tell you a few things that will happen then. We will be open for you to come in, and there is study space. Because of social distancing, there will only be about 100 spaces throughout the library that you can use. And actually, you may only use the lower level and the first floor. We have cordoned off the upper levels because we have to quarantine the collection in order to keep it safe from people touching it. So what's going to happen is this is going to be a very high touch service. You are going to ask for a group of books to be pulled from the stacks. We will pull them for you. We will check them out to you, and you can either then study in the library using those materials, or we will give you a bag and you can do essentially curbside delivery. We've been practicing doing that with the faculty members this summer. So you're going to have several options available to you. Our Mac lab is going to be open for you to be able to use. The recording studio will be available to you. We are digitizing as much as we can that is sort of allowed by the copyright law. In the springtime, publishers were very, very generous and understood the position that students were in, and they really allowed librarians to just scan at will. That time has passed, and so we're being very careful about how we do it now. But what we want you to know is to ask us for what it is you want. You will see on the library's website, american.edu/library, that there's a chat box. All of your reference questions, your research design questions for the librarians will all be answered through that chat box, whether you are in person on campus or studying remotely. All of our faculty librarians are going to be working remotely, and they are the ones that you'll go to for those kinds of questions. We know that some of you as graduate students go very deeply into a subject area and that you want to know what's on the shelves. We actually have a way that we can show you to be able to search the library shelves book by book by book by call number, so that you would then be able to know what we've got and how you would be able to get it from us. We also are available to get materials for you from other libraries through interlibrary loan. If you are local, you'll come and check it out from the library. If you are remote, we're going to mail it to you. And we will mail you a prepaid envelope to mail it back to us. If you only need a chapter, tell us that. We'll scan that chapter and we'll send it to you as an attachment to your email. We're trying to make this as simple for you as we can, and also protect the collection. Anytime a book is touched, it has to be quarantined for at least 72 hours because it could carry the virus for that long. So we're trying to be the intermediary, knowing that we are completely gloved and masked, etc. The library will only be open, and this is the sad part of my story, the library will only be open from 9 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. But because you are graduate students, there is a separate space for you known as the Graduate Research Center that you can get to through the library as well. That will be up to you. You'll be able to swipe in and swipe out. It's only one space. There are restrooms nearby, but that space will be available to you after 9 o'clock in the evening. And with that, I think I've covered the majority of what I needed to say, but as you have questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I appreciate it. I'm now going to ask my colleague from General Counsel, Ben Walker, to join us to talk a little bit about leases. We think we have the technical problem solved. So Ben, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Sorry for the technical issues. I would say, just to start out, I can't give anybody any specific legal advice on your particular situation. What I can do is go through some of the things you might want to think about as you're assessing your lease and trying to figure out how you want to move forward. Obviously, the most important thing is to know what your lease says, review it. I would pay particular attention to any termination provisions or any provisions relating to whether you can sublease or assign your own lease. Generally, unless the contract says you can't, in DC, you can sublease or assign a lease to someone else. So check and see what your lease says and think of that as a possible option. The other advice I think you'll get from most on this, I think the more likely it is you'll be able to identify a way to move forward that's beneficial to you both. It should be in the landlord's interest. The sooner you get in to end the lease in a positive way or in a way that's at least somewhat beneficial to him, and to negotiate with you and talk it through. Some options you might consider would be terminating, see whether the landlord might want a termination fee, what that might be, a modification to your lease to modify the time you're there, or anything that you can do or you'd request the landlord to do to amend the lease to allow you to be out for a while and come back, maybe stop it for a period of time and take it back up. You kind of have a lot of flexibility to suggest ideas you think might work and see what floats in terms of what the landlord's willing to do. The landlord's going to have a duty to mitigate their damages, and they're going to be, I think, very loath to be filing lawsuits against tenants right now. The DC courts are moving even slower than normal, so I don't think my expectation is no landlord's going to be really in a rush to try to go to court over this sort of stuff. So you have some options out there. Don't try to proceed in a reasonable way. Review your documents. Go to the DC tenant office's website, resident. The resources you can go to get help and to figure out the best way for you to approach your individual situation. These are such fact-specific cases that it's really difficult to give anything other than a broad overview of ways you might consider moving forward. So thanks very much for the opportunity to chime in.
Thanks, Ben. And I do know that a lot of the school is referring students to, or allowing students to tell their landlords that they can check out our website to see that we have moved to an all online operation, if that will help at all, but that the university has now moved to all online programs so for the fall. Great, so thank you very much for all that information. We have many questions regarding health insurance, and so I'm now going to turn over to my colleague Michael Keynes to talk about health insurance, how you can waive out of it, what the rules are based on how many credits you're enrolled in, if you need to enroll in health insurance, so both waiving out and enrolling in, and also questions about coverage both inside the DMV, in the US, but outside the DMV, and then internationally. So Michael, I'll turn it to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy. That's a lot of information, so I'll try and get through it as much as possible. The first thing I'm going to do is through the chat mechanism, I'm going to share the website where most action can be done. We have a partnership that we work with, and I'm sending if you all are able to look at the chat function, I've just sent a statement for the website that you can do most of your actions. Just to read it out in case you want, it's American.myahpcare, myahpcare.com. We work with a partnership for this. That partnership is Academic Health Plans. That's connected with Care First, and that's Blue Cross Blue Shield. One of the things that often we hear, there's some questions about the challenges signing up. And one of the biggest mistakes that often gets made is that when it asks you to use your AUID, a lot of new students will put in their email. Their email is not their AUID. Their AUID is a 7-digit number. And I believe the default passcode is your birth date. That's on there. So if you try to use something that says you know, 2 digits and then two, like your initials and then 4 numbers and an A, that's not going to work. So you want a 7-digit number. The second issue is how do we fill out the form? All of that can be found on that website. There's a statement there for enrollment. Once you sign in, it'll ask you to sign in. That's the way you can enroll in this. Everyone does need to be covered if they are in the United States. Now, that doesn't mean you need to use this coverage. A lot of people have different options. Options can be being included on your parents' health care. Another option is to actually use the ACA, which you can find at healthcare.gov. As long as you have viable insurance, you can submit a waiver. And that waiver can also be found on that website that we sent there. That waiver, you'll find at the top, there's something that has enrollment. There's another one that says waiver. That's the place to go and fill out the waiver. And that does take some time. It's like 5 to 7 business days, but that is an option too. A lot of people have asked, well, what happens if I'm staying in the United States? Do I really want to have that coverage? Well, that coverage is actually, it's through Blue Cross Blue Shield. On that website, there's information about what doctors are available. And if you look at that, you don't even have to look at the top that says find a doctor. You can put in a city and you can find out what doctors are available as long as you use Blue Preferred. That's on the instructions. That may be an option, and because it is a big network, there are a lot of options for you that are available. However, if you're overseas, you might opt not to use this, especially if you have international insurance. Now, this is a little bit tricky because it depends upon whether you have an F1 visa or not. And I know that we have ISSS potentially on the line too to talk about that. If you have an F1 visa, that says that you may be able to come back, and we do want you to have insurance if you are maintaining an F1 visa. If you don't have an F1 visa, or for example, you're a new graduate student, you decide you're staying in your country, you do not need to have insurance for this, and you could stay on your government's insurance. So our online students who are overseas do not necessarily need to get a waiver, and that's part of what we've done for them in these cases. That's most of the information that I think I need to give you, but I'll look through the questions and we'll try and answer some of them later.
Great. Thanks so much, Michael. I appreciate it. There's 2 more pre-submitted questions. The first one really has to do with assistantships. And the question is, can our students, even though we're online, are you still able to apply for an assistantship or jobs? And the answer to that is absolutely. There are still many faculty and other departments that are looking for students to employ students for student assistance in the research space, in the teaching space, and in just the general graduate assistant space. And so you are absolutely still able to apply for jobs. One of the issues we have had, though, is in terms of where you're located. And so it is important to understand that if you do have an assistantship, part of our ability to pay for that internship is based on the fact of where you are physically residing. And where you're physically residing has to do with how we have to pay you and how we can pay you. The problem we do have is in the space of some of our students who are out of country and our ability to pay that way due to the different labor laws and tax laws. And so you will want to understand what the job will entail and based on where you're residing, what options we have to pay you. In addition, and of course, no one is going to be asked to work if we can't pay you. So that is part of the discussion and may limit some people based on the tax laws of where you are. In addition, if you are in the United States but outside the DMV, we have a partner company called NextSource. That company will be helping us to pay our students who are in the US but outside the DMV because American University can issue paychecks for in the DMV only. So the district, Maryland, and Virginia. And so based on those assistantships, we'll have you working with your units so we can hire you in and hire you in appropriately and work with you to understand what payment options we may or may not have. And so those discussions will be happening within the units. But I know that that's something that's very important to many of you, and I understand that. And I do believe that we will still have many jobs for students to work even in a virtual capacity. Great. So I think, so the last pre-submitted question we had was around how some technical subjects may be taught. And so I'm going to turn to my colleague, Ayman Omar, who's the Associate Dean in the Co-Grad School of Business. The question was really specifically around accounting courses, financial courses, and how technical subjects may be explained and taught online.
Thanks, Wendy, and hi, everyone. So we've been in this space now for several years. We have full online programs in different programs at the graduate level at the Co-Grad School of Business that include multiple financial courses, accounting courses, analytical courses that we've all designed in creative ways to be conducted both in an asynchronous and synchronous ways. In addition to that, we've been working with all of our faculty since June 1st in a series of workshops to make sure that all of the courses are delivered at the highest level, again, regardless of modality, and making sure that we're ready for whatever that outcome is or the modality is for the fall. So I'm very, very confident that all of those courses would be conducted easily and in many creative and engaging ways. And specifically for any courses related to specific courses or sections, I'd encourage you to reach out to your faculty and connect with them and discuss those specifics. And I'm happy to continue that conversation offline as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. So I am now going to go through some of the additional questions that are here. We are, as you can see, we're trying to answer them as quickly as we possibly can in the chat. And we will also make sure to answer those that we don't get to today, you know, by emailing you and trying to provide those answers. So let's see, I'm going to look. So we did answer the questions on teaching assistants. There are a lot of questions regarding the UPass and some of the various passes and fees. And again, for the UPass specifically, we are working right now to renegotiate that contract. Once we do that, we hope to have an answer by the end of this week or early next week. And once we do that, based on those renegotiations, we will be able to inform you of how the UPass will be handled, whether you would like to remove it because you're not here, assuming that's an option, whether you still want it because you are in the DMV, and all of those different options. And so we will be working to further communicate that out. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to ask my colleague, Sanem Baker, Director of the International Student and Scholar Services. Sanem, we have a couple questions around students who may be in the country and would like to, I guess, speak with you and working with how we can help to provide them with what they need while they're in the country.
Sure, I'll be happy to do so. And then I'm sorry, my camera is not switching to an on, mode. But students who are currently in the United States, we will be in touch with them. We will be in touch with all students to try to figure out who is here, who is there, first of all. But especially students who have arrived already, I do encourage them to let our office know. And the best way to do so is by sending us a very simple email at iss@american.edu that they are physically here in the United States. Then what we do is we go through the official reporting process with our office, and then we go ahead and register them in CVIS, which means that we are telling the rest of the world that these students are in good immigration status. So it's a very simple process, but it's a mandatory process that we have to go through. If they can just let my office know that they are physically here, we will take it from there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to put the next question to our Associate Dean from the School of Communications. Katerina, there is a question around film students and access to equipment, how long students may be able to check out equipment. Does SOC have guidelines on that at this time?
Good afternoon, I guess good evening. Yeah, I actually answered privately in the chat. I'm monitoring all of the SOC related questions, but I'll be happy to speak if that question did not come through chat. So the SOC is actually working with the university to ensure that the McKinley building, Don Myers building, and the Media Production Center will be open in the fall semester. And we will be offering, equipment to students at least twice a week. So look out for additional communication, and the best person to contact for additional information is Jeffrey Madison, and his email address is madison@american.edu.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry if I missed that you had already responded. I apologize. We do have a question regarding when virtual modalities will be, when students will know the virtual modality versus live, online, synchronous, asynchronous. The registrar is working right now to update the class modalities and more specific information on the registration system. At the same time, we do encourage you to reach out to your faculty. We have also asked faculty to post syllabi, required textbooks as soon as possible. So we have reached out to the faculty recently asking that. And so hopefully you can communicate with your faculty and continue to get more information about your class specifically. In addition, our faculty do want to work with our students to accommodate you based on where you are in the world, your time zone, and your needs. And so please do feel free to reach out to them and share with them your concerns. And of course, your advisors in each of the schools are, looking forward to working with you also. There was some questions regarding the TA-RA positions, and could I elaborate on that a bit more? I believe the question is really around the types of work, and so in terms of TAing, a professor may ask you to participate in their Zoom classes. They may ask you to, do some grading, a variety of the same responsibilities that would be done as a TA, even if you were residential. So holding some office hours, but virtual office hours. In terms of serving as a research assistant, whether it is helping to clean data, going and looking for literature to help with a research project, proofing papers, working in a lab. So there are a lot of different opportunities that would still fall under the same duties and responsibilities for both research assistants and teaching assistants. But again, if you are not do not have access to campus or do not feel comfortable coming to campus, many of those roles would be able to be done virtually. And so what we would ask is, as you're applying for the position, of course, to make sure that you're having that conversation, understanding where you are, where the faculty knows where you are, or the unit that you're working for knows where you are, knows if you will be virtual, or if you feel comfortable being present for some things, and then working with them to make sure that you can, fulfill the roles needed for that position. Okay, let's see. So there are definitely questions around the spring semester. We do not have an answer right now in terms of what modality will be in the spring semester. That said, our hope is, of course, that we will be more in person in the spring. That said, we also know that we have to make sure that we can accommodate classes for our students who could not be here and could not be in DC in the spring. And so as things start to evolve and the situation in terms of the number of cases, the regulations of Washington, DC, and what will be allowed, as those things continue to change and adapt, of course, if it is safe for us to open and something that we feel like we can do in a manner that would make sense for all of us, we are, of course, looking to be more and more in person as time goes on. However, things can change at any time. And so at this point, we do not have answers to the spring, but we are aware that we will have to be able to serve our students who need to stay online. And of course, if we can, serve students who would like to be on campus. Let's see. Just trying to look through these questions as fast as I can. We do have a question on international students OPT. And how that may be impacted. Sanem, if you are available to jump back on, I could give you this question. Okay, we might need to move forward at that one. Let's see. In terms of, we did speak a little bit about your ability to defer a semester if you would like. Of course, we understand there's a variety of different circumstances, so we'd love to be able to work with you. And so, again, this is partly, why we're trying to help in terms of the financial resources for all of our students, because we know that COVID has posed many different financial challenges for all of us. And so that was part of the tuition discounting. There are questions about where do we sign up for direct deposit, and so our Office of Human Resources can help you with that if you are working as a assistant and you will be in the district. Again, if you're going to be paid through our partner company NextSource because you are in the United States but outside the DMV, then you will work with our NextSource partners, and our individual schools, as they hire you in, will be giving you all the information that you need for that. In terms of when will you know about TA and RA jobs, those are being posted regularly. If you've already been given an assistantship and the unit themselves, so the individual college or school is the one hiring you in for that assistantship, that school will be in contact with you. The associate deans will be in contact with you to discuss those positions. And you should have also received a survey from the different schools to ask about where you're residing, and several other questions about your role. I would ask at this time if any of my associate dean colleagues or my school colleagues have anything to add or things that they'd like to mention that maybe I've missed. Any of you are welcome to jump on if you would like to do that. As I mentioned, there's many of us behind the scenes here. I think about 20 of us panelists all waiting to answer questions. And so again, if any of my colleagues do want to jump on, please feel free. Thanks, Lauren.
Hi, Wendy. I've seen a lot of questions about the OneCard. So just to preface this, I'm not with the OneCard office. I'm in the College of Arts and Sciences. We did receive an email from the OneCard office today about picking up cards. As it says on their website, they're not going to mail the cards. If you are going to be outside of the DMV area, you will be able to pick up your card in the spring when you arrive. If you are in the DMV area, they do have appointments on Tuesdays only from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and you need to email onecard_dining@american.edu with the subject line appointment to make an appointment to come to the OneCard office to pick up your OneCard. All of the units received this afternoon, so you should be getting that email from your units in the next few days.
Thank you so much. Very important. So with that, I think we covered a lot of the topics in the questions and answers. I will very carefully make sure we go through all of these questions and try to get responses to you if I felt like there were questions that we were not able to answer. Again, as Lauren mentioned, there's a lot of questions on the OneCard. There's questions on the UPass and fees, questions on healthcare. Hopefully we've covered most of those today. And so we will be reaching out to you. With that, I really want to thank you for taking your time on a Thursday evening to come and meet with us. Most of your communications will, of course, come through your different schools, but you should always feel free to reach out to the Office of Graduate Studies or any of us if you have questions. We know that this is a difficult time, and there's a lot of things changing, and we know that this isn't the semester you had planned for or expected when you first thought about going to grad school or started grad school. And so I do appreciate you understanding that you know, the health and safety of everyone is first and foremost for all of us. And I know that we can be successful. I know that our faculty is really committed to delivering great classes. And we're really excited for those of you who are in the DMV to be able to still come on campus and access our labs and other resources. And so with that, I thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday evening, and please feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. Thank you so much. Have a good night.